A waitress shelters a dying pregnant woman in a snowstorm and delivers her baby with her last breath. The next morning, a powerful CEO arrives demanding the child. But when he discovers the truth about who the woman really was, the snow isn't the only thing that freezes. Subscribe now or this might be our last meeting. Follow, comment, and share to stay connected. Don't miss out. Let's dive in. The snow fell over Vermont like a white blanket trying to erase every sin from the earth. It covered the roads, the trees, the rooftops. Everything disappeared under that frozen silence. It was as if God himself wanted to give the world a second chance, a clean slate. But Eliza Hart knew better. She knew that some stains never wash away. Some mistakes stay forever, buried deep in the heart where no snow can reach. Eliza stood inside Porter's diner, wiping down the counter for the last time that night. Her hands moved slowly, tired from the long day. The clock on the wall said it was almost 9. No one else would come tonight, not in this weather, not in this storm. She looked outside through the foggy window and saw nothing but white. The snow was falling harder now, faster, angrier. She sighed deeply. It was time to close up and go home. Home. That tiny room upstairs where she slept alone every single night, where the silence was so loud it hurt, where she kept pictures of people who weren't there anymore. Her husband, her son, gone, both of them, taken from her in one terrible moment 3 years ago. The wind howled outside like a wounded animal. It screamed and cried and begged. Eliza shivered. That sound always reminded her of that night, the night of the accident, the night everything ended. She could still hear the screech of tires, the crash of metal, the awful silence that came after. She closed her eyes tight, trying to push the memory away. But it never left. It never did. "Stop it, Eliza," she whispered to herself. "Just stop." She walked toward the light switches, her footsteps echoing in the empty diner. Her hand reached up, ready to turn off the lights, ready to walk away and lock the door behind her. But then she stopped. Something made her look outside one more time. Something she couldn't explain. And that's when she saw it. A shape on the road. A shadow. A figure lying in the snow. Eliza's heart jumped in her chest. She pressed her face against the cold glass, trying to see better. Was it a person? An animal? A trick of the light? No. It was real. Someone was out there. Someone was down. Someone needed help. "Oh my God!" Eliza gasped. She didn't think. She just ran. She grabbed her coat from the hook by the door and threw it on as fast as she could. Her hands shook. Her heart pounded like a drum in her chest. She pushed the door open and the freezing wind hit her like a slap in the face. The cold was brutal. It cut through her skin like knives. But she didn't care. Someone was out there dying. Eliza ran through the snow, her boots sinking deep with every step. The wind pushed against her, trying to knock her down. Her face burned from the cold. Her lungs hurt from breathing the icy air. But she kept running. She had to. She had to reach that person. When she got closer, she saw who it was. A woman. A young woman lying face down in the snow. Her clothes were soaked. Her body was still. Too still. "No, no, no!" Eliza cried out. She fell to her knees beside the woman and turned her over carefully. "Please don't be dead. Please." The woman's face was pale. So pale. Her lips were blue from the cold. Purple almost. Her eyes were closed. But then, oh thank God, then Eliza saw her chest move. Just a little. Just enough. She was alive. She was breathing. But there was something else. Something that made Eliza's eyes go wide with shock. The woman was pregnant. Very pregnant. Her belly was huge under her wet coat. "Oh no," Eliza whispered. "Oh no, no, no." She had to get her inside. Now, right now. Eliza tried to lift the woman, but she was heavy. Too heavy. Eliza pulled and struggled and cried with frustration. The snow kept falling. The wind kept screaming. And then finally, with all her strength, she managed to drag the woman toward the diner. Step by step. Inch by inch. When they got inside, Eliza laid her down gently on the floor. The warmth of the diner hit them both. Eliza's hands were shaking so hard she could barely move. She ran to grab blankets from the storage room. Every blanket she could find. She wrapped them around the woman's cold body, tucking them in tight. "You're going to be okay," Eliza said, even though she wasn't sure, even though she was terrified. "You're safe now. You're safe." The woman's eyes fluttered open. Just barely. Just for a second. Her lips moved, trying to speak. Eliza leaned in close, her ear near the woman's mouth. "My name," the woman whispered, so soft Eliza almost didn't hear. "My name is Mara." "Mara," Eliza repeated, tears filling her eyes. "Okay, Mara, I'm Eliza. You're going to be okay, I promise." Eliza ran to the kitchen and heated up some soup as fast as she could. Her hands trembled as she poured it into a bowl. She brought it back and helped Mara take small sips. The warm liquid seemed to bring a little life back to her face, a little color to her cheeks. That's when the door burst open again. Eliza jumped, startled, but it was only Nell. Dear Nell Porter, the owner of the diner. She was 70 years old with silver hair and eyes full of wisdom and faith. She carried lanterns in her hands and wore her old winter coat. "I saw the light still on," Nell said, walking in quickly. "I knew something was—" She stopped when she saw Mara on the floor. "Oh, dear Lord. She was on the road," Eliza explained, her voice shaking. "I found her. She's pregnant, Nell, and she's so cold." Nell set down the lanterns and knelt beside them. She looked at Mara with such kindness, such compassion. Then she looked up at Eliza and smiled gently. "God sent this girl to us," Nell said firmly. "He sent her right to your door, Eliza. This is no accident. This is a miracle." Eliza wanted to believe her. She wanted to believe that miracles still happened in this cruel world. She looked at Mara, wrapped in blankets, holding her pregnant belly, and she looked outside at the storm that raged on. Outside everything was white and silent and frozen, but inside the diner something else was happening. Inside there was warmth, there was care, there was love. Love that refused to let someone die alone in the snow. Love that opened the door when everyone else would have locked it. The storm had only just begun. The worst was still coming, but destiny had already walked through that door, and nothing would ever be the same again. Mara woke up slowly, her eyes opening with confusion and fear. She didn't know where she was at first. Everything was blurry. Everything was strange. But then she felt the warmth around her, the soft blankets, the smell of coffee and pie, and she remembered. Someone had saved her. Someone had brought her inside. Her hands immediately went to her belly. She pressed down gently, checking. The baby. Was the baby okay? She felt movement inside and let out a breath of relief. Thank God the baby was still alive. "You're awake," a gentle voice said. Mara turned her head and saw a woman sitting nearby. She had kind eyes and brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked tired but caring. So very caring. "I'm Eliza," the woman said softly. "You're safe here. You're in my diner." Mara's eyes filled with tears. She tried to sit up, but her body was so weak. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving me." "Don't thank me yet," Eliza said with a sad smile. "Just rest. Please rest." But Mara couldn't rest. She looked toward the window with panic in her eyes. Her whole body tensed up. She looked like a scared animal ready to run. "I'm running away," Mara said suddenly, her voice shaking. "I'm running from everything." Eliza wanted to ask why. She wanted to ask who or what this woman was running from, but something stopped her. Maybe it was the terror in Mara's eyes. Maybe it was the way her hands trembled. Maybe it was just instinct. Whatever it was, Eliza decided not to push. "You don't have to tell me anything," Eliza said gently. She walked to the kitchen and came back with a cup of hot tea. "Just drink this. It'll help you feel better." Mara took the cup with both hands. Her fingers wrapped around it tight, desperate for the warmth. She took a small sip and closed her eyes. For just a moment, she felt safe, really safe. Nell appeared from the back room, her rosary beads in her wrinkled hands. She was praying softly, her lips moving with words only God could hear. She looked at Mara with so much love, so much faith. "God will protect you, child," Nell said quietly. "He will protect you and your baby. I'm praying for both of you right now." Mara's tears started falling again. She couldn't stop them. "Thank you," she sobbed. "Thank you so much." Suddenly the wind outside hit the building hard, so hard the whole diner shook. And then, without warning, the front door flew open. It slammed against the wall with a loud bang. Cold air rushed inside like an angry spirit. Eliza jumped up and ran to close it. She pushed against the door with all her strength and finally got it shut. She locked it tight, but her heart was racing. Was that just the wind? Or was it something else? A warning? A sign? Nell crossed herself and kept praying. Mara pulled the blankets tighter around her body, her eyes wide with fear. When Eliza came back, she noticed something. Mara was holding something around her neck, a necklace, a simple chain with a letter hanging from it, the letter R. Mara saw Eliza looking and quickly hid it under her shirt. She turned away, ashamed, scared. "My brother," Mara whispered, so quietly Eliza almost missed it. "My brother can't know where I am. He can never know." Eliza sat down beside her. "I won't tell anyone," she promised. "I swear I won't." But even as she said the words, Eliza didn't understand how big that promise really was. She didn't know what was coming. She didn't know that this one simple promise would change her entire life forever. The two women stayed awake all night. They sat together in the warm diner while the storm raged outside. The wind screamed like a demon. The snow piled higher and higher against the windows. But inside, they were safe. Inside, they had each other. Mara started to talk, not about everything, not about who she really was, but about her pain, about her mistakes, about the man who had betrayed her. "He told me I would ruin everything," Mara said through her tears. "He said I was a mistake, that the baby was a mistake, that I should just disappear." Eliza felt anger rise in her chest. How could anyone say that to a woman? How could anyone be so cruel? "He said my brother would never forgive me," Mara continued, crying harder now. "That I brought shame to our family, that I destroyed everything." "That's not true," Eliza said firmly. She took Mara's hand and squeezed it tight. "You are not a mistake. Your baby is not a mistake. You hear me? You are precious. You are worthy of love." Mara looked at her with such gratitude, such desperate hope. She squeezed Eliza's hand back, and in that moment, something beautiful happened. A connection, a bond, the kind of bond that forms between two souls who understand pain. "I just wanted to live," Mara whispered. "I just wanted to be free." "I know," Eliza said softly. "I know you did." Nell watched them from across the room, still praying, still believing. She knew what Eliza didn't know yet. She knew that this moment was holy, that God was doing something bigger than any of them could see, that this wasn't just a rescue. This was destiny weaving its threads together. Outside, the world was frozen and white and silent, but inside the diner, love was breathing. Love was holding hands. Love was promising protection to a stranger in the dark. The storm had barely begun, but fate had already walked through the door, and nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. The scream came at dawn. It ripped through the quiet diner like a knife through cloth, sharp, sudden, terrifying. "Ah!" Eliza shot up from where she'd been dozing in a chair. Her heart exploded in her chest. She ran to Mara, who was doubled over in pain, clutching her huge belly. "No, no, no," Mara cried out. "It's too soon, it's too soon." "The baby!" Eliza gasped. "The baby's coming!" Nell appeared instantly, moving faster than a woman her age should be able to move. She'd been resting in the back room, but now she was wide awake, focused, ready. "Eliza, get towels," Nell commanded. "Hot water, everything we have." Eliza's hands were shaking so badly she could barely move, but she forced herself to act. She ran to the kitchen, grabbed every clean towel she could find. She filled pots with water and put them on the stove to heat. Her mind was racing. Her heart was pounding. She had done this before. She had been with a woman in labor before. But that was years ago. That was with her own sister. And everything had gone so wrong. So terribly, horribly wrong. "I can't do this," Eliza whispered to herself, tears streaming down her face. "I can't do this again." But then she heard Mara scream again. And she remembered. She remembered her own son. The baby boy she had carried for 9 months. The baby boy she had loved so much. The baby boy who died before his 2nd birthday in that awful car accident. She couldn't save her own child. But maybe, she could save this one. "I'm coming!" Eliza shouted. She grabbed the towels and the hot water and ran back. Mara was lying on the floor now, blankets beneath her, her face twisted in agony. Sweat poured down her forehead. Her hands gripped Nell's arm so tight her knuckles were white. "You're doing great, honey," Nell said calmly, though her own hands trembled. "You're so strong, so brave." She pulled out her rosary beads and started praying. Her voice was steady, full of faith. "Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee." Eliza knelt down beside Mara. She didn't know exactly what to do, but instinct took over. Memory took over. Her hands moved on their own, preparing, helping, supporting. "Breathe," Eliza told Mara. "Just breathe with me, in and out, in and out." Mara tried. She really tried, but the pain was too much. She screamed again, her body pushing, fighting, struggling to bring life into the world. The minutes felt like hours. The hours felt like years. Eliza and Nell worked together, doing everything they could. The diner filled with steam from the hot water, with the smell of sweat and fear and hope. And then, finally, a different cry filled the air. Not Mara's cry, not a cry of pain, a baby's cry, high and pure and perfect. "It's a boy," Eliza sobbed, holding the tiny slippery baby in her trembling hands. "It's a beautiful baby boy." Tears poured down her face like rain. She wrapped the baby in a clean towel, cleaning his little face gently. He was so small, so perfect. His eyes were closed, but his mouth was open, crying with all the strength in his tiny lungs. Nell cried too, her hands clasped together in prayer. "Thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you." Eliza brought the baby to Mara, placing him carefully on her chest. "You did it," Eliza whispered. "You did it, Mara. He's perfect." Mara looked down at her son with so much love it broke Eliza's heart. She smiled. She actually smiled. For the first time since Eliza had found her, Mara looked at peace. She looked happy. "Hi, baby," Mara whispered to her newborn. "Hi, my beautiful boy." But then something changed. Mara's smile faded. Her face went pale, too pale. Her body started shaking. "Mara?" Eliza said, fear creeping into her voice. "Mara, are you okay?" Blood. There was so much blood, too much blood. It soaked through the blankets, spreading fast, dark and terrifying. "No!" Eliza screamed. "No, no, no! Nell, help me!" Nell moved quickly, trying to stop the bleeding, but it wouldn't stop. It just kept coming. Mara was slipping away right in front of them. "Take care of him," Mara whispered, her voice so weak now, so faint. "Please, please don't let him find the baby." "Who?" Eliza begged, tears streaming down her face. "Who, Mara? Tell me." Mara's eyes were closing. Her breathing was shallow. With her last bit of strength, she spoke one final time. Just a whisper, just a breath. "My brother, Rowan Pierce." And then her chest stopped moving. Her eyes closed one last time. Her hand went limp in Eliza's grip. "Mara!" Eliza sobbed. "Mara, please, please don't go." But she was gone. Just like that. In one terrible moment, life and death had danced together in that little diner. One soul entered the world, another one left. Eliza held the baby close to her chest, crying so hard her whole body shook. The baby boy didn't understand. He just kept crying, looking for his mother who would never hold him again. Nell covered Mara's body with a clean white sheet. She made the sign of the cross over her. Her lips moved in silent prayer. There was nothing else to do, nothing else to say. Outside, the storm finally began to calm. The wind stopped screaming. The snow fell softer now, gentler, as if even the sky knew something sacred had happened, as if heaven itself was bowing its head in respect. Inside the diner, Eliza held the baby and cried. She cried for Mara. She cried for this innocent child who would never know his mother. She cried for herself and all the loss she had suffered. But even through the tears, even through the grief, Eliza made a promise. She looked down at that tiny, perfect face and whispered words that would change everything. "I will protect you," she promised the baby. "I will keep you safe, no matter what, no matter who comes looking. I promise you." And Eliza Hart never broke her promises, never. Morning came quietly, like the world was holding its breath. The storm had passed during the night, leaving everything buried under fresh white snow. The roads were empty. The sky was pale gray. And Porter's diner sat alone on that frozen highway like a small beacon of warmth in a cold, cruel world. Eliza hadn't slept at all. How could she? She sat in a chair near the window, holding the baby boy wrapped in soft blankets. He was sleeping now, peaceful and innocent. He had no idea what had happened. He had no idea his mother was gone forever. Nell had covered Mara's body with clean white sheets and placed her gently in the storage room. It was the only thing they could do until they could contact someone, until they could figure out what to do next. Nell sat nearby now, her rosary beads in her wrinkled hands. praying softly, always praying. Eliza looked down at the baby's tiny face and felt her heart break all over again. This little boy, this innocent child, what would happen to him now? Who would take care of him? Who would love him the way his mother should have? I will, Eliza whispered to herself. I will take care of you. But then she heard it, the sound of a car engine, getting closer, getting louder. Eliza's head snapped toward the window. Her heart started pounding hard in her chest. A car was coming down the road. A big black car, expensive looking, completely out of place in this small Vermont town. Nell, Eliza said, her voice shaking. Someone's coming. Nell stood up slowly and walked to the window. She looked outside with her wise old eyes and then looked back at Eliza. Stay calm, child, she said softly. Whatever happens, stay calm. The black car pulled into the parking lot and stopped right in front of the diner. The engine turned off. For a moment, nothing happened. Everything was silent. Too silent. Then the driver's door opened. A man in a dark suit stepped out first. He was young, professional looking. He walked around the car and opened the back door. And that's when he stepped out. The man in the expensive gray suit, tall, broad-shouldered. His hair was dark and perfectly styled. His face was handsome but hard, cold, like he was made of stone instead of flesh. He looked at the diner with sharp eyes. Then he started walking toward the front door with steady, confident steps. The kind of steps that belonged to a man who always got what he wanted. A man who was used to being in control. Eliza's blood ran cold. She didn't know who this man was, but she just knew, that he was connected to Mara somehow. She could feel it in her bones. The door opened and the bell above it rang. The man stepped inside, bringing cold air with him. His eyes scanned the diner quickly, taking everything in. When his gaze landed on Eliza holding the baby, he stopped. I'm looking for Mara Pierce, he said. His voice was deep and firm, commanding. I was told she might be here. Eliza felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. Mara Pierce. That name, that exact name. The same name Mara had whispered with her dying breath. Rowan Pierce. This had to be him. This had to be the brother. Who's asking? Nell said sharply, stepping forward like a protective mother hen. The man turned to look at her. My name is Rowan Pierce, he said. I'm the CEO of Pierce Construction in Boston. Mara is my sister, my younger sister. She's been missing for 3 days, and I've been searching everywhere for her. Eliza's hands tightened around the baby. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. This was him, the man Mara had been running from, the man she was so terrified of, the man she begged Eliza not to let find the baby. Nell moved slightly in front of Eliza, blocking her view. What makes you think she came here? She asked, her voice steady and strong. Rowan's jaw tightened. I have my ways, he said coldly. I tracked her phone. I spoke to people. Someone saw her walking on this road 2 nights ago during the storm. His eyes moved past Nell and locked onto Eliza again. So I'll ask one more time. Is my sister here? Eliza stood up slowly, still holding the baby close to her chest. She looked Rowan Pierce right in the eyes and said the words that would change everything. She's dead. The silence that followed was deafening. Rowan Pierce didn't move. He didn't blink. He just stared at Eliza like he hadn't heard her correctly, like those words couldn't possibly be real. What? He whispered. His voice cracked just a little, just enough to show that underneath all that cold stone, there was a real person, a person in pain. She died last night, Eliza said, her voice firmer now. She was in labor. The baby was born, but she didn't make it. Rowan's face went pale. All the color drained right out of it. His eyes filled with tears that he fought hard to keep from falling. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. He looked like a man who had just been punched in the stomach. Hard. No, he said, shaking his head. No, that's not possible. She can't be. I'm sorry, Eliza said, and she meant it. Even though Mara had been afraid of this man, even though she had run from him, Eliza could see his pain. She could see that he had loved his sister, that he was heartbroken. Rowan took a step back, trying to steady himself. He ran a hand through his hair. He closed his eyes tight. When he opened them again, they were red and wet, but he blinked the tears away. He wouldn't let himself cry, not here, not in front of strangers. His eyes fell to the baby in Eliza's arms, the tiny boy wrapped in blankets, sleeping peacefully, completely unaware of everything happening around him. And the child? Rowan asked. His voice was like iron now, cold and hard again, hiding all his emotions behind a wall of control. Eliza held the baby tighter, protectively. She asked me to take care of him, she said without hesitation. Before she died, she made me promise. Rowan stared at her, really stared, like he was trying to see into her soul. You? He said. She trusted you, a stranger? Yes, Eliza said firmly. She trusted me, and I will not break my promise to her. The silence between them was heavy, so heavy it felt like the whole world was pressing down on that small diner. Rowan Pierce, the powerful CEO, the man who controlled empires and made million-dollar deals, stood face to face with Eliza Hart, the simple waitress who had nothing but her word. And in that moment, a new war began. Not a war of weapons or violence, but a war of wills, a war between power and principle, between money and morality, between a man's pride and a woman's promise. Nell watched them both carefully, her rosary beads still in her hands. She could feel it. She could feel the tension crackling in the air like electricity. This was only the beginning. The real fight hadn't even started yet. Outside, the sun was rising slowly, melting the snow bit by bit. But inside the diner, everything was frozen. Everything was waiting. Waiting to see what would happen next. Waiting to see who would win this battle for one tiny, innocent life. Rowan Pierce looked at the baby one more time. Then he looked at Eliza. His face was unreadable. His eyes were cold. But deep inside, buried beneath all that ice, something was breaking. Something was cracking. He had lost his sister, and now he was going to lose his nephew too. No, he wouldn't let that happen. He couldn't. The battle had begun. Rowan took a step forward, his eyes fixed on the baby. "I'm taking him," he said. His voice was flat, cold, final. "I'm his uncle, his only living relative. He belongs with me." Eliza stepped back instinctively, holding the baby even tighter against her chest. "No," she said firmly. "Absolutely not." Rowan's eyes narrowed. He wasn't used to being told no. People didn't refuse Rowan Pierce, ever. He was a CEO, a man of power and influence. When he spoke, people listened. When he gave orders, people obeyed. But this woman, this simple waitress in her worn jeans and old sweater, was standing there telling him no, like she had any right, like she had any power at all. "Excuse me," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "You heard me," Eliza said, her chin lifting with courage she didn't know she had. "Mara trusted me with her baby. She chose me, not you." She specifically said. Eliza stopped herself. She didn't want to reveal too much, but the words were already out there, hanging in the air. Rowan caught it immediately. "She said what?" he demanded, taking another step closer. "What did my sister say about me?" Eliza's heart pounded. She looked into his eyes and saw anger there, but also pain. Deep, terrible pain. This man was hurting. But that didn't change what Mara had asked. That didn't change her promise. "She asked me to protect him," Eliza said softly but firmly. "She trusted me, and even God heard that promise." "God?" Rowan laughed bitterly. "You're going to bring God into this? This is a matter of law, of family, of blood. This is a matter of a dying woman's last wish," Eliza shot back, her voice rising now. "She didn't want you to have him. She was terrified of you finding him." The words hit Rowan like a physical blow. His face went white. His hands trembled. "Terrified," he whispered. "She was terrified of me." Before Eliza could respond, Nell stepped between them. Her small, elderly frame somehow filled the entire space. Her eyes were sharp and fierce despite her age. "Nobody is taking anything from a body that's still warm," Nell said, her voice calm but absolute. "You hear me, young man? That girl just died. Her baby was just born. There will be no fighting. There will be no taking. Not in my diner. Not today." Rowan looked at Nell like she was crazy. "With all due respect, ma'am, this doesn't concern you. Everything that happens under my roof concerns me," Nell replied, crossing her arms. "And right now, what I see is a man who's grieving. A man who just lost his sister. But grief doesn't give you the right to take a child from the woman his mother chose." "Chose?" Rowan's voice rose. "She didn't choose anything. She was desperate. She was dying. She grabbed onto the first person she saw." "Maybe," Eliza said quietly. "Or maybe she saw something in me. Something she knew her baby needed." Rowan spun to face her again. His eyes were blazing now. Anger mixed with grief, mixed with something else. Something that looked almost like guilt. "You don't understand," he said, his voice shaking. "You don't understand what I lost, what I've been through. Mara was all I had left. My parents are gone. I have no other family. And now she's gone too. That baby," his voice broke. "That baby is all I have left of her." For the first time, Eliza saw past the cold exterior. She saw the broken man underneath, the man who was drowning in pain and loss, and her heart ached for him. It really did. "I understand more than you think," Eliza said, tears filling her own eyes. "I lost my husband and my son 3 years ago. Car accident. They died instantly. I know what it's like to lose everything. I know what it's like to have nothing left." The confession hung in the air between them. Rowan stared at her, really seeing her for the first time. This wasn't just some nosy stranger trying to steal his nephew. This was a woman who understood loss, who understood grief. They stood there, two broken people, facing each other across an impossible divide. "Then you know," Rowan said quietly, "that I can't lose him too. I can't." "And I know," Eliza replied just as quietly, "that I made a promise, and I don't break my promises. Ever." The conversation shifted then. It became something different, something deeper, not a fight anymore, but a confession, an unburdening of souls. Rowan sank into a chair, suddenly looking exhausted. He put his head in his hands. "Mara and I had a fight," he said, his voice muffled. "A terrible fight. 3 months ago, she told me she was pregnant. She wouldn't tell me who the father was, just that he was gone, that he didn't want anything to do with the baby. Nell poured coffee without asking and set a cup in front of him. He didn't even notice. I said things," Rowan continued, his voice thick with regret. "Terrible things. I was angry. I told her she was being irresponsible, that she was throwing her life away. And then," he stopped, struggling to continue. "And then," Eliza prompted gently. "And then my business partner got involved," Rowan said, lifting his head. His eyes were red now. "Caleb Drummond, my lawyer and friend, or so I thought. He pulled me aside and told me Mara was going to ruin everything, that she would embarrass our family name, that I needed to convince her to give the baby up." Nell's hand tightened around her rosary beads. Her face darkened. "I didn't listen at first," Rowan said quickly. "But Caleb kept pushing. He said it was for her own good, that she was too young, too unprepared. He even offered to arrange everything, an adoption, a private one. He said no one would ever have to know. And Mara found out," Eliza said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes," Rowan whispered. "She overheard us talking. She was devastated. She screamed at me, told me I was trying to steal her baby, that I didn't love her, that I never loved her." His voice broke completely. "And then she ran. She took her car and drove away, and I never saw her again." Tears were streaming down his face now. He didn't even try to hide them anymore. "That's why she was running," Eliza said softly. "She thought you wanted to take her baby away." "I didn't," Rowan cried out. "I swear I didn't. I was confused. I didn't know what to do. Caleb was so convincing. He made it sound like it was the right thing." Nell spoke then, her voice quiet but heavy with suspicion. "This Caleb Drummond," she said slowly. "What kind of man is he?" "He's my business partner," Rowan said. "We've worked together for 10 years. He handles all the legal aspects of our company. He's brilliant, ruthless when he needs to be, but I always thought he had my best interests at heart." "Did he now?" Nell murmured, her eyes narrowing. "And where is this man now?" "I don't know," Rowan admitted. "I told him I was coming here to find Mara. He said he'd stay in Boston and handle things there." Eliza looked at Nell. Nell looked back at Eliza. They were both thinking the same thing. Something wasn't right. Something about this Caleb Drummond didn't add up. "This baby," Eliza said slowly, looking down at the sleeping infant in her arms. "He's not just a baby, is he? There's something more going on here." Rowan looked up at her with haunted eyes. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do," Nell said sharply. "You just don't want to admit it yet." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Outside, more snow began to fall, soft and silent, as if the sky itself was mourning. Inside the diner, 3 people stood at a crossroads, each of them carrying secrets, each of them protecting something precious, and somewhere in the shadows a darker force was watching, waiting, planning, because this story wasn't over, not even close. The real villain hadn't even shown his face yet. The door to the diner opened again just as the tension was reaching its peak. The bell rang cheerfully, completely out of place with the heavy atmosphere inside. A man walked in, bringing with him the smell of expensive cologne and cold winter air. He was tall, well-dressed in a long black coat over a tailored suit. His shoes were polished to perfection. His hair was slicked back neatly. And his smile, oh, his smile was perfectly practiced. Too perfect. "Rowan," the man said, his voice smooth as silk. "Thank God I found you." Rowan stood up quickly, surprised. "Caleb? What are you doing here?" "I told you to stay in Boston." Caleb Drummond walked toward them with confident strides. His eyes swept over the diner, taking in everything. Eliza holding the baby. Nell standing protectively nearby. The exhaustion on Rowan's face. "I was worried about you, my friend," Caleb said, placing a hand on Rowan's shoulder. "You sounded so upset on the phone. I couldn't just sit in the office while you dealt with this tragedy alone." His words were kind. His tone was concerned, but something about him made Eliza's skin crawl. She held the baby closer, instinctively protective. Nell's eyes narrowed as she watched Caleb. She'd seen men like him before. Men who wore kindness like a mask. Men who smiled with their mouths, but never with their eyes. "I'm so sorry for your loss," Caleb continued, his voice dripping with false sympathy. He looked at Eliza. "You must be the woman who tried to help Mara. How noble of you." Eliza didn't like the way he said noble, like it was an insult instead of a compliment. "I did what anyone would do," she said coldly. Of course," Caleb said, waving his hand dismissively. "And now we need to figure out what to do about this situation." He gestured toward the baby. "The child will need proper care, legal guardianship, documentation. It's all quite complicated." "It's not complicated," Eliza said firmly. "Mara asked me to take care of him. That's exactly what I'm going to do." Caleb's smile tightened just a fraction, just enough for Eliza to notice. "I understand you feel attached," he said, his voice patronizing now. "But surely you realize that a child needs more than good intentions. He needs stability, resources, a proper family." "He has me," Eliza said. "You're a waitress," Caleb said bluntly. The mask was slipping now. His true nature was starting to show. "Living in a tiny room above a diner in the middle of nowhere. How exactly do you plan to provide for a child?" "Money isn't everything," Nell interjected sharply. Caleb turned to look at her like he'd just noticed an annoying fly. "Forgive me, but this is a legal matter, not a moral one." "Everything's a moral matter," Nell shot back, "especially when it involves an innocent baby." While they argued, Nell's hand moved subtly. She reached behind the counter where an old cell phone sat, the kind with actual buttons. She'd been filming conversations on it for years. Customers who tried to skip out on bills, delivery drivers who got aggressive. It was her little security system. Now she pressed record without anyone noticing. Caleb turned back to Rowan. "We need to resolve this quickly and quietly," he said. "For everyone's sake. The media can't get wind of this. Your sister dying in some roadside diner. A baby of unknown parentage. It would be a scandal. It could hurt the company." "I don't care about the company," Rowan said quietly. Caleb's eyes flashed with irritation. "Well, you should. We've built an empire together. Don't throw it away over sentiment." "Sentiment?" Rowan's voice rose. "We're talking about my sister. My nephew." "Exactly," Caleb said smoothly, recovering quickly. "Which is why we need to do what's best for the child. And what's best is that he comes with us. Back to Boston, where he'll have everything he needs." He looked at Eliza then, really looked at her, and she saw it. The predator behind the polished exterior, the snake wearing a suit. "It's what we arranged with Mara, wasn't it?" Caleb said casually. Too casually. She was going to give the baby up for adoption. We had it all planned out. Eliza's blood ran cold. "That's a lie," she said. "Is it?" Caleb raised an eyebrow. "How would you know? You knew her for what? A few hours?" "Long enough to know she loved her baby," Eliza fired back. "Long enough to know she wanted him protected from men like you." The words hung in the air like an accusation. Caleb's smile finally disappeared completely. His eyes went hard and cold. "Careful," he said softly, dangerously. "You're making serious accusations." Rowan was watching the exchange with growing unease. Something was wrong. Very wrong. He'd known Caleb for 10 years, but suddenly he was seeing him with new eyes. "Caleb," Rowan said slowly, What did you mean by what we arranged with Mara? Caleb blinked. Just for a second, he looked caught. Then that smooth smile returned. Just that we discussed options with her, remember? Before she ran away. No, Rowan said, his voice getting harder. We discussed it. You and I. Mara wasn't part of that conversation. So, what exactly did you arrange with my sister? The temperature in the room dropped. Everyone could feel it. The confrontation building. The truth trying to break free. Nothing, Caleb said, but his voice was less confident now. I misspoke. I meant we discussed. You're hiding something, Rowan said. It wasn't a question. What did you do, Caleb? Caleb laughed. That smooth, practiced laugh. You're upset, grieving. You're not thinking clearly. Answer the question, Rowan's voice thundered through the small diner. Caleb's expression went cold. The mask was completely gone now. Not everything needs to be said between partners, Rowan. Some things are better left alone. Not when it involves my sister. Rowan took a step toward him. Not when she ran away terrified. Not when she died thinking I wanted to steal her baby. Nell was still recording everything. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. She could feel it. The evil in this man. The devil wearing expensive clothes. Eliza held the baby even tighter. She could feel the darkness emanating from Caleb Drummond. Whatever he was hiding, whatever he had done, it was bad. Very bad. This baby, Eliza said suddenly, looking directly at Caleb. He's worth something to you, isn't he? Not as a person, but as, what, money? Property? Caleb's eyes narrowed dangerously. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? Eliza challenged. Then why are you really here, Mr. Drummond? Why did you drive all this way when Rowan told you to stay in Boston? The silence was suffocating. Everyone stared at Caleb, waiting for an answer. But he just smiled, that cold, terrible smile. I came to protect my friend's interests, he said simply, and to make sure this situation doesn't spiral out of control. By controlling it yourself, Nell said quietly. By controlling all of us. Caleb looked at the old woman with something like contempt. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Oh, I know exactly who you are, Nell replied, her hand gripping her rosary beads. The devil loves an expensive disguise. The words hit like a bomb. Caleb's face twisted with anger. Rowan looked shocked. And Eliza realized with absolute certainty that this man, this charming, polished, successful man, was the real enemy. Not Rowan, not fate, not circumstance. Caleb Drummond was the villain. And somehow this tiny baby sleeping in her arms was at the center of his evil plans. The battle lines were drawn. The players were revealed. And the real fight was about to begin. After Caleb left, the diner fell into an uneasy silence. Rowan sat at one of the tables, his head in his hands. Eliza stood near the window, still holding the baby. Nell was cleaning up, but her mind was racing. Something about Caleb Drummond bothered her deeply. That's when Eliza remembered. The letter. Mara had been clutching something when Eliza found her in the snow. A piece of paper, crumpled and wet. Eliza had stuffed it into her apron pocket without thinking. She reached into her pocket now with her free hand. Yes, it was still there. The paper was wrinkled and slightly damp, but readable. Wait, Eliza said suddenly. Mara left something. A letter. Rowan's head snapped up. What? Let me see it. Eliza carefully unfolded the paper, her hands shaking. The handwriting was messy, shaky, like it had been written in fear. She read aloud, her voice trembling. If something happens to me, find Eliza Hart. She knows. She will protect my baby. Please, don't let him take my son. Eliza Hart is the only one I trust. The silence that followed was deafening. Rowan stared at Eliza like he'd seen a ghost. His face went completely white. How? He finally whispered. How did she know your name? Eliza looked down at the letter, confused. I don't know. I never told her my full name. But she wrote your full name, Rowan said, standing up now. Eliza Hart. She knew exactly who you were. How is that possible? Nell moved closer, examining the letter. This wasn't written recently, she observed. Look at the paper. It's old. She'd been carrying it for weeks, maybe months. She knew she was coming here, Rowan said slowly. She knew she was coming to find you specifically. And then it hit Eliza. A memory, sharp and painful. From 3 years ago. Boston, the city, the accident. Oh my God, Eliza whispered, her legs suddenly weak. She sat down hard. Oh my God, no. What? Rowan demanded. What is it? 3 years ago, Eliza said, her voice barely audible. There was an accident in Boston. My husband, my son, they were killed, hit by another car that ran a red light. Rowan's face changed. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition. Fear. The other car, Eliza continued, shaking now. It was a silver sedan. The driver was a woman. She was rushed to the hospital. I never knew what happened to her. Rowan stumbled backward like he'd been shot. You, he whispered. You were the wife, the woman who lost her family in that crash. Eliza's heart stopped. What? The silver car, Rowan said, his voice hollow. That was my wife, Elena. She died 2 days after the accident. And before she died, she told me about the other car, about the family she destroyed. The world froze. Time stopped. Eliza and Rowan stared at each other, connected by a tragedy neither had ever imagined would bring them together. Your wife killed my family, Eliza said, the words coming out cold and flat. She didn't mean to, Rowan said desperately. She had a seizure while driving. She never saw the red light. It doesn't matter, Eliza shouted. Your wife took everything from me. And the guilt killed her, Rowan shouted back. 2 days of agony. Do you know what that did to me, Tamara? Nell stepped between them, hands raised. Stop. Both of you, stop. They both fell silent, breathing hard, tears streaming down their faces. Don't you see? Nell said softly, tears in her own eyes. Neither of you came here by accident. Mara knew who Eliza was. She knew about the connection. Rowan pulled a photograph from his wallet with shaking hands. It was him and Mara together. In the background was a newspaper clipping on a wall. Eliza squinted at it, and her blood ran cold. It was an article about the accident, with a photo of her crying outside the hospital. Mara never let it go, Rowan said quietly. She felt responsible, like our family had destroyed yours. She kept that article for years. She wanted to make it right somehow. She came here to find me, Eliza whispered. She was dying and she came to give me her baby because she thought it would make up for what we took from you, Rowan finished. Nell covered her mouth. The pain brought you both here. This baby is the bridge between your broken worlds, the chance for forgiveness. But before anyone could respond, they heard footsteps outside, crunching in the snow, moving away quickly. Rowan ran to the window. Caleb, he was outside. He heard everything. Nell's face went white. The recording on my phone. She ran to check. The phone was gone. He took it. Through the window, they watched Caleb's car speed away into the darkness. The real danger was out there now, watching, planning, and it knew everything. That night was the longest of Eliza's life. The police came and went. They took statements about Caleb, but couldn't arrest him for simply leaving. Rowan wanted to drive to Boston immediately, but the roads were too dangerous. He would have to wait until morning. Eliza took the baby upstairs to her small room. She made a bed for him using blankets and pillows. She watched him sleep, his tiny chest rising and falling. So peaceful, so innocent. She couldn't sleep. Everything had changed in 2 days. And now there was danger. Real danger. Around 3 a.m, Eliza finally dozed off in the chair. She was exhausted. Her body couldn't stay awake anymore. A sound woke her. Downstairs. A door closing softly. Eliza's eyes snapped open. She looked at the crib. Empty. The baby was gone. No! Eliza screamed. She ran downstairs. No, no, no! The diner was dark, empty, but on the counter was a piece of paper held down by a coffee cup. With shaking hands, Eliza read it. Money and silence, or you'll never see him again. The world tilted. Eliza fell to her knees. This couldn't be happening. Rowan! She screamed. Rowan! He shot up from the bench where he'd been sleeping. What's wrong? The baby, Eliza sobbed. He took the baby. He's gone. Rowan grabbed the note and read it. His face went from confusion to horror to rage. Caleb, I'll kill him. Nell came running from next door, still in her nightgown. When she saw their faces, she started praying, out loud, loudly. Dear God, protect that innocent child. Bring him back safely. Rowan called the police. They arrived within 20 minutes. They found signs of forced entry through the back window, tire tracks leading toward the highway. But the storm was getting worse. We can't search in this weather, the officer said. It's too dangerous. No, Eliza screamed. We can't wait. He took him to Boston, Eliza said suddenly. She just knew. Caleb took the baby to Boston. I'm sure of it. Rowan looked at her. How do you know? Because that's where he has power, Eliza said. That's where he controls things. Rowan nodded. She's right. He turned to the police. Start the search in Boston. I'm coming with you, Eliza said. What? No, it's too dangerous. That baby is my responsibility, Eliza shouted. If I hadn't stopped on that road, he would have died. I saved his life once and I'll save it again. Rowan stared at her, then nodded. Okay, we go together. Nell grabbed both their hands. Then I'm praying every second you're gone. They raced through the storm toward Boston. Rowan drove fast. Too fast, but he didn't care. Eliza sat beside him, praying silently. Please God, please keep him safe. There's an abandoned warehouse on the east side, Rowan said. Caleb bought it years ago. I always wondered what he really used it for. That's where he is, Eliza said. I know it. They found the building. Old, run down. Through a broken window they saw light, flashlights, shadows moving. And there, Caleb, talking to two rough-looking men, and in his arms, the baby. They crept closer and listened. This baby is worth more than you imagine, Caleb was saying. His mother was married to a very wealthy man before she died. The money goes to the child, millions. And you control the kid. You control the money, one man said. Exactly, Caleb laughed. Once Rowan and that waitress are out of the way, who else is there? Eliza's blood boiled. This wasn't about protecting anyone. This was about greed, pure evil greed. Rowan looked at her, rage in his eyes. We end this now. Rowan kicked the door open with such force it flew off its hinges. Caleb! Caleb spun around, eyes wide with shock. The two men with him reached for weapons. Put the baby down now! Rowan roared, advancing like a man possessed. Caleb's face twisted with rage. He pulled a gun from inside his coat. Stay back, Rowan! I mean it! You're not walking out of here with that child! Rowan shouted. Everything happened so fast. Caleb raised the gun, aimed at Rowan. His finger moved toward the trigger. No! Eliza screamed. She threw herself forward, shoving Rowan hard to the side. The gun fired. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. The bullet whizzed past them, missing by inches. Eliza fell hard, scraping her arm on the concrete floor. Pain shot through her shoulder, but she didn't care. From somewhere in the back of the warehouse, the baby started crying. Rowan lunged at Caleb before he could fire again. He grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the wall. The gun clattered to the floor. The other two men ran. They wanted no part of this. Tell me the truth, Rowan demanded, his face inches from Caleb's. All of it. Caleb laughed. Even now, with Rowan's hands around his neck, he laughed. You really don't know, do you? You really have no idea. Know what? Rowan shook him violently. She wasn't just your sister, Rowan. Caleb spat out. Mara wasn't just running from you. He reached into his pocket with his free hand and pulled out folded documents. He threw them on the floor at Rowan's feet. Read it, Caleb snarled. Read it and see what I've been hiding. Eliza crawled over, picked up the papers with shaking hands. At the top of the first page was an official seal, a marriage certificate. Her eyes scanned the names. Mara Elizabeth Pierce, and her heart stopped. Daniel James Hart, she whispered. Hart, the same last name as hers. What? Rowan said, confused. He grabbed the certificate from her hands and read it himself. His face went white. She was married, Caleb said, enjoying their shock, to a very wealthy man named Daniel Hart. He died 6 months ago in a car accident overseas. Left everything to Mara. Millions of dollars. Properties, investments, everything. Eliza couldn't breathe. Daniel Hart. Daniel. That was her husband's brother. The brother who moved to Europe years ago. The brother she'd only met twice. The brother who cut off all contact with the family after some argument she never understood. She was my sister-in-law, Eliza whispered, staring at the certificate. This baby is my nephew, my actual blood nephew. The room spun. Everything clicked into place. Mara hadn't just come to her randomly. Mara had known exactly who she was, not just as the victim of Elena's accident, but as family, as the only family left. Mara married into your family, Rowan said to Eliza, his voice filled with wonder and horror. We were connected before we ever met, before she even came to your diner, and I couldn't let that money slip away, Caleb said coldly. I'd been planning to take control of Mara's inheritance for months, convinced her to name me as trustee for the baby. But then she figured out what I was doing. She ran before I could finalize everything. You monster, Eliza breathed. You were going to steal from a baby, from your own partner's nephew. Business is business, Caleb said with a shrug. Rowan's grip tightened. You made her run. You made her so terrified she died in the snow. This is your fault. And you almost got away with it, Eliza said, standing now despite the pain in her shoulder. You would have taken the baby, taken the money, and no one would have known. Sirens wailed in the distance. Getting closer. The police were coming. Caleb's confidence finally cracked. You can't prove anything. We have your confession, Rowan said, and we have witnesses. It's over, Caleb. Eliza ran to the back of the warehouse where the baby was crying in a cardboard box. She scooped him up, holding him close to her chest. I've got you, she whispered through her tears. You're safe now. You're safe. The baby quieted immediately, recognizing her somehow, recognizing safety. When she came back, police were flooding into the warehouse. They grabbed Caleb, putting him in handcuffs. He struggled and screamed, but it was useless. Rowan walked over to Eliza. He looked at the baby in her arms, his nephew, his sister's son, and he looked at Eliza, the woman who had saved this child twice now, the woman who was connected to all of this by threads of fate and tragedy so complex it seemed impossible. You saved him, Rowan said, his voice breaking. You saved my sister's baby. You saved my family. He's my family too, Eliza said softly, looking down at the precious little face. He always was. We just didn't know it yet. Outside, the sun was beginning to rise. The storm was finally passing, and in that cold warehouse, surrounded by police and chaos, two broken people held one perfect child and understood. Destiny had woven this miracle long before the snow ever started falling. The police took Caleb away in handcuffs. He screamed and cursed as they shoved him into the back of the patrol car. The sirens wailed into the early morning, red and blue lights flashing against the snow. Eliza held the baby close, wrapping him in her coat to keep him warm. He'd stopped crying now. He was safe. Finally safe. Rowan stood beside her, looking exhausted, broken, but also lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. You saved my sister, he said quietly. His voice was thick with emotion. And you saved my soul. Eliza looked up at him. She saw the tears in his eyes, the genuine gratitude, the pain and the hope mixed together. I only did what someone would have done for me, she said softly. Rowan shook his head. No, you did more than that. You protected him even when you didn't know who he really was. You put yourself in danger for a stranger's baby. That's not just kindness. That's love. The word hung in the air between them. Love. Such a simple word. Such a powerful word. A paramedic checked Eliza's shoulder where she'd scraped it in the fall. It wasn't serious. Just a bad bruise. She'd be fine. They drove back to Vermont as the sun rose, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The storm had finally passed. The roads were clearing. Everything looked new, clean, like the world had been given a second chance. When they pulled up to Porter's Diner, Nell was standing on the porch waiting for them. She'd been awake all night, praying. When she saw them get out of the car, Eliza holding the baby, both of them safe, she burst into tears. Thank you, Jesus, Nell cried, rushing down the steps. Thank you, thank you, thank you. She hugged Eliza carefully, mindful of the baby. She hugged Rowan too. Then she ushered them all inside where hot soup was already waiting on the stove. Sit down, both of you, Nell commanded. You need to eat. You need to rest. The diner was warm. The smell of fresh coffee and homemade bread filled the air. Outside, the last of the snow was melting in the morning sun. Now the cold is finally over, Nell said wisely, pouring coffee for everyone. The real cold, the kind that lives in hearts. Rowan sat at the counter, his expensive suit wrinkled and dirty. He looked nothing like the powerful CEO who had walked through that door days ago. He looked human, real. I'm going to start a foundation, he said suddenly, in Mara's name, and in the baby's name, to help women in crisis, to make sure no one else has to die alone in the snow. Eliza smiled through her tears. She would have loved that. And you, Rowan continued, looking at Eliza, you'll take care of him, won't you? Officially, legally. He's yours. He's your nephew. Eliza looked down at the baby sleeping peacefully in her arms. Her nephew, her blood, the child she never thought she'd have again. Yes, she whispered. I'll love him like he was my own son." Nell wiped her eyes with her apron. "Not all pain is punishment," she said softly. "Sometimes pain is a path, and this path brought you both exactly where you needed to be." Rowan looked at Eliza, really looked at her, and he saw what Mara must have seen: strength, compassion, the kind of love that saves lives. "I want to be part of his life," Rowan said. "If you'll let me, I want to visit, to know him, to make sure he knows where he came from." "Of course," Eliza said. "He deserves to know his uncle, to know his mother's story." The sun streamed through the diner windows now, bright and warm. The darkness was gone. The danger was over, and in its place was something new, something fragile but real. Hope, a new beginning. And for the first time in 3 years, Eliza Hart felt something she thought she'd never feel again: peace. 6 months passed like a beautiful dream. Porter's Diner became famous in a quiet way, not because of the food, though Nell's pies were still the best in Vermont, but because of the story, the miracle that happened there. Travelers came from all over, wanting to see the place where a dying woman gave birth, where an unlikely family was formed from tragedy and snow, where God wrote straight with crooked lines. Eliza named the baby Noah. It meant rest and comfort, and that's exactly what he brought to her shattered heart. Rest from the pain, comfort in the loneliness. Noah grew quickly. He was a happy baby, always smiling, always laughing. He had Mara's eyes and Daniel's smile, and when Eliza held him, she felt her brother-in-law's presence somehow, like Daniel was watching over them both. Rowan came every weekend without fail. He'd drive up from Boston on Friday nights and leave Sunday evenings. At first it was just to see Noah, to hold his nephew, to read him stories and buy him too many toys. But gradually it became about more than that. It became about Eliza too. They would sit together after Noah went to sleep, drinking coffee and talking, about everything, about nothing, about life and loss and learning to love again. Nell watched them with knowing eyes. "Love grows best in soil that's been broken," she said once, kneading dough in the kitchen. "Y'all are proof of that." Eliza blushed. "We're just friends, Nell." Nell said, not believing a word of it. One Saturday afternoon, Eliza and Rowan took Noah for a walk. The snow was falling again, but gently this time, peacefully, like a blessing instead of a curse. "Life took everything from me," Eliza said softly, pushing the stroller. "My husband, my son, my dreams of family. I thought God had abandoned me." Rowan walked beside her quietly, listening. "But then he gave it all back," she continued, "just in a different way, through strangers who became family, through tragedy that became miracle." Rowan stopped walking. He turned to face her. "Eliza," he said. His voice was serious, nervous. "Yes? I know it's too soon," he said. "I know we have so much history, so much pain between our families, but I can't stop thinking about you, about us, about the possibility of—" Eliza reached out and took his hand. "It's not too soon," she said gently. "We've both been alone long enough." He squeezed her hand. No more words were needed. Not yet. They had time, all the time in the world. The bell above the diner door rang. A traveler came in, stomping snow off his boots. "Welcome," Nell called out cheerfully. Come in, it's cold out there." "Thank you, ma'am," the traveler said. "I wasn't sure I'd find anything open in this storm." "We're always open," Nell said, pouring him coffee. "God sends us who he sends us, and we take care of them." The man smiled. "You must see a lot of interesting people here." "Oh, honey," Nell laughed. "You have no idea. Let me tell you a story about a night not so long ago." And as she told the story of Mara and Eliza and the miracle baby, the traveler listened with wide eyes. Outside, the snow kept falling, soft and steady, and inside Porter's Diner, life went on, filled with warmth and second chances and proof that God never stops writing beautiful things, even in the darkest storms, especially in the darkest storms. 5 years later, Eliza and Rowan stood at the window of their home by the lake. Noah was playing on the floor with his toy trucks, making engine noises with his mouth. He was 5 now, smart, kind, full of joy. The house was warm and filled with pictures on every wall, pictures of all of them together, pictures of Mara too. They made sure Noah knew his mother, knew her story, knew she loved him enough to save him. Porter's Diner was still open, of course. Nell was older now, moving a bit slower, but she still made the best pie in Vermont. And she still called every customer my angel. On the wall behind the counter hung a photo, an old photo from that first night, Eliza holding a newborn baby wrapped in blankets. Her face was tired and tear-stained, but there was something else in her eyes too. Hope, love, determination. Under the photo, a small plaque read, "This is where love began." Rowan came home from work that evening and hung up his coat. He kissed his son on the head. Then he walked over to Eliza and kissed her too. "Long day?" she asked. "Worth it," he said, smiling. "The foundation helped 12 families this week. 12 women who won't have to face their storms alone." Eliza's eyes filled with happy tears. "Mara would be so proud." "She is proud," Rowan said. "I know she is." Noah ran over and hugged his father's leg. "Daddy, look what I built. A whole city." Rowan laughed, scooping him up. "You're amazing, buddy." "Do you think snow falls by accident?" Noah asked suddenly, with the randomness of a 5-year-old. Rowan and Eliza looked at each other and smiled. "No, baby," Eliza said softly. "I think snow falls to remind us." "Remind us of what?" Noah asked. "Of what heaven saved," Rowan said, pulling both of them close. From the kitchen, the smell of dinner cooking. From outside, the gentle sound of snow beginning to fall again. From the living room, the warmth of the fireplace and the laughter of a family that shouldn't exist, but did. At Porter's Diner, Nell locked up for the night. She stood on the porch for a moment, looking up at the stars. Her rosary beads hung from her wrist as always. "You did good, Lord," she whispered. "Real good." The snow fell slowly, silently, like a prayer made visible, and the world, for just this moment, seemed completely forgiven.